2, 1. Okay. Hey, everyone out there in digital land. This is Dusty with the FBO Group, and I've got Shane Raburn. He is our inspector manager at the FBO Group. Say hi, Shane.
Hi there. How's everybody doing?
So, I'm always bringing somebody on Ask a Pro, and I thought, wow, I'm really missing the boat by not having somebody from our team on Ask a Pro. So we wanted today to talk about, first of all, the market. The market's really crazy right now. Multiple offers. You've got, shortened inspection periods. And so we're trying to work through all of that as fast as we possibly can. We've got Shane's coming back, hopefully, fingers crossed. He's been out with some health issues recently, so he'll be back shortly, full swing. And then we've got 2 more inspectors that hopefully will be released by June 1st. So we shouldn't have a capacity issue this year. So we're super excited about that. But we've got some things that I think that might help you as the general consumer to kind of be on the lookout of what it is that you should be looking for in specific ages of the houses, right? Because when you build, people are using the same materials within that decade or several decades. So I asked Shane to join us today because I wanted to kind of review a 4-point. And a 4-point, I'll let Shane tell you what a 4-point is. Shane, go ahead.
Sure. Yeah, a 4-point is an insurance report. It goes, basically just to your insurance company on older homes. And it covers the age and condition of the roof, the plumbing, the HVAC system, which is your heating and cooling, and also your electrical system. Insurance companies want to make sure that these systems are in good working order because that's where the majority of their claims come from. And it's also their most expensive claims. So there's a lot of violations that they look for that if those hazards are present, they will normally make you address those issues and correct them before they'll issue you an insurance policy.
And so in order to get a mortgage, you have to have insurance. Correct. So you can't move forward in a transaction until you have what they call a cleared 4-point. And that means that you don't have any of those major infractions that the insurance companies are concerned about in order to move forward. So we're going to talk about like age specific stuff today. And we're going to start in 1920s because there's been a lot of renovation in our particular area where they've taken the older homes in Seminole Heights and Plant City and they've renovated them. And so there are some, possible, and we're not saying always, but there are some possible pitfalls when you're looking at homes in certain age brackets. And so we just really wanted to review those. So Shane, let's start in 1920 and let's spread all the way out to 1950. What are some of the issues that we might see when you go in to do a home inspection?
Well, unfortunately, on those age homes, if no renovation has been done, it's actually pretty much everything. All of the systems are completely outdated. And could be potentially hazardous. Some of the electrical systems that they used back in those times were like knob and tube wiring or cloth wiring, which are both considered hazardous as of today's standards. The majority of older homes or homes in that area have been renovated, but sometimes they just add to the existing systems and don't completely remediate it. So you have to be careful with, making sure that any of the older electrical system is no longer in service at all. It has to be completely eliminated and the newer systems installed. Not only the wiring, but it can also include the electrical panels where you have your breakers, your shutoff breakers for your system. A lot of the brands of panels that they used back in those days are now considered either obsolete where they don't make those, parts for those panels, brands of panels anymore, or they're just completely, um, you know, unacceptable. They're considered fire hazard, so they have to be completely replaced before they'll proceed with the policy. Also, the plumbing is usually outdated. They use a lot of galvanized supply plumbing back in those days, which can rust over time from the inside out, and it could cause pinholes in the pipes, which could cause leaking. And it's usually back between the behind the walls, in between walls, could possibly be in the attic. So you can imagine what a leak in those areas, what kind of damage that could lead to. And we all know insurance companies, are very hesitant to pay claims. Especially it seems to be worse, as time goes on.
Well,
Also,
if I
yeah,
can
go ahead.
interject there, so they've actually made a lot of changes, and during a transaction, one of the things that you're going to need to shop is homeowners insurance. I have Melissa from AmeriFirst on here. Excellence First Insurance about a month ago, and she was talking about how they're really getting harder to approve roofs that are not 5 years of life expectancies, water heaters that are close to end of life, that they don't have 5 years of life left in them, because that's where they're seeing their claims. So they're trying to protect the industry and the claims as well as you, because when you're a homeowner and you're walking into that space, a lot of times as a new homeowner, you're walking in, your pockets are pretty empty, right? And so last thing you want is a roof issue or a hot water issue. And then if it's not covered under your homeowner's insurance, then it's completely out of your pocket. And a lot of times when you have water damage does more than just affect the actual issue, like the roof or like the water heater. So you could have damage done inside the house. It just is kind of like a snowball effect. So anyway, I just wanted to kind of chime in there for a minute and just give that, revert you back to the conversations that we had with Melissa and the great information she was able to share with us.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Matter of fact, we've seen the criteria change over time. It used to be that if the water heater was working, even if it was 30 years old, if it's working, it's fine. No problem. Now they've changed it to they are considering the age of the water heater, even whether it's working or not. If it's over, say, 20 years old, they're going to have issues with that because it's more likely to have a problem. It could fail, it could leak, and so forth. And they didn't used to consider the waste plumbing. It was only the supply plumbing. Now they're listing on their reports what type of waste plumbing is present in the home, which in these older homes that we're talking about now, there was a lot of cast iron waste plumbing that was used in the homes, which, like galvanized, can rust from the inside out and cause failure, which could also, cause leaks with the waste system. So that's actually now, part of their criteria on the report, where it didn't used to be. So they're being much more stringent. Same with the roof. Used to be if it had 2 to 3 years life expectancy, it was fine. Now it's going to 5 minimum. I wouldn't be surprised if very soon, and they may bump it up to 7 to 10. I mean, it's really starting to get pretty stringent on their requirements. So it just makes it all that much more important to get this inspection done in the report.
Shane, can you explain the difference between galvanized and cast iron? What is the difference?
Sure. It's just a different type of material. Cast iron is it's usually a black color, and a lot of people call it like pot metal. It's just very brittle and fragile over time. The water will eat away. It's been many times that we've done an inspection on a house in a crawl space, and we've gone underneath where the waste plumbing is visible, and it's just completely collapsed, and the waste is just going out onto the floor or the ground. Excuse me. Cast iron, galvanized is very similar to cast iron. It's basically the same type of metal, but it's just been treated with a galvanizing process And forgive me, I don't know all the technical details and the chemistry involved in that. But I do know that it's a treatment that's supposed to prolong the life of the metal and keep it from rusting. But it's proven over time that that's not the case. It does actually continue to rust and build up on the inside of the pipe, which can cause excessive pressure, which puts more pressure and compromise on the rusted areas, which can contribute to failure.
So cast iron basically is your sewage line coming from the house to the sewer itself.
Correct.
And then the galvanized is what they were using in interior, right?
Right. That's the supply plumbing. That's
Okay.
the water coming in from the street or the well into the interior faucets, and so forth.
Okay. All right. What is typical for homes that are between 1960 and 1980s?
Well, again, it's just outdated materials and processes that they use for installation. Some materials changed during that time period, like instead of knob and tube or cloth wiring, in that time period, especially in the 1970s, they used a lot of single strand aluminum wiring for the electrical system, as well as also the outdated and obsolete electrical panels. The problem with aluminum single strand wiring is that it's much softer than copper.
Okay.
And it actually gets hotter. Aluminum is actually a better conductor of electricity than copper. So that's why they started using it. And even in today, you can see that a lot of what they call dedicated circuits, which is just a single item on a circuit. And it's usually your bigger appliances like your range, your dryer, water heater, where that's the only thing on that particular circuit. They used a braided aluminum wire for that.
Okay.
It's not a single strand, it's multiple strands kind of braided together almost like a rope. And they use that for that circuit because, like I said, aluminum is actually a better conductor of electricity than copper. The problem was in single strand aluminum for your circuits, your branch circuits, they call it, for like lights, switches, outlets, so forth. It would overheat and melt. And then, of course, you can imagine melting, wiring inside, behind light switches and outlets, what kind of issues that could, cause. So yeah, they just discovered that, over time it overheated and now it's completely, unacceptable. Any aluminum wiring that's found in a home either has to be completely rewired or you have to put these connectors, and there's a couple different brands, at any circuit termination, whether it's an outlet or a switch. You have to connect it with a copper connector to the outlet or switch.
So does the Alumicon, and I know that that's one of the brands that's out there, does the Alumicon actually fix a single strand aluminum?
Correct.
Aluminum
Yes.
As well? It does.
Yep.
Oh, okay.
Alumicon
I didn't
is
realize that. Okay.
Yes. Alumicon is an acceptable remedy. I think there's another one called. Oh, my mind's going completely blank.
That's because we haven't been working you enough.
Yeah, I'm a little rusty. Sorry. But there's a couple of different ones. Alumicon is the most prevalent because it's just easiest to apply. And as of now, as far as I know, that's an acceptable, repair.
Okay.
As we've been talking about, they're changing every day. So there may come a time where it's not.
Sure.
But yeah.
And the one thing I can tell you about rewiring your whole house or being able to use like a connector fix, you're paying about half the cost.
Right. Oh yeah.
If it is an acceptable repair, then it would be half the cost of rewiring your whole house. So that's the reason that I really wanted to clarify that. If somebody's facing that issue, like we're trying to help you to understand what is going on with your home. Okay.
Yes. Yep.
And then we've got recall panels and obsolete panels. Can you tell me what's on that list so that I can, we can educate the consumer?
Sure, absolutely. The term recalled is not really in the general sense that you think of recall. Like say, an automobile manufacturer recalled a certain year model that the brake sensor was bad, and you bring it in and they replace it for free. That's not what we're talking here. They just used the term recalled, meaning that it's unacceptable and it has to be replaced, unfortunately, at your expense. They don't replace them for free. They've just been deemed to be fire hazards because they overheat and the breakers don't trip when they're supposed to, and it could cause a fire. The brands that are on that list are Zinsco, GTE Sylvania, and Federal Pacific. Those three for sure. And some Challenger panels are considered recalled at worst. At best, they're on the obsolete list where they just don't make parts for that type of panel anymore. So any replacement breakers or whatever, you have to buy secondhand.
Okay.
So it's just general. And I've heard different stories. Some insurance companies accept Challenger, some do not. It just would kind of depend on the carrier, I think, at this point.
And that is a big thing. I'm glad you brought that up because, again, shopping your home insurance carriers are crucial because one carrier may say, no, I don't accept Challenger or Sylvania, and another may say, yes, I do. So make sure that you're working with a well-qualified home insurer that knows the business, has been in it for a while, and has a great reputation. So polybutylene plumbing is something that we see a lot in the 60s, 70s, and probably like into the late 80s, I believe. What is polybutylene and what is the problem with it?
Well, that was kind of in between the old galvanized plumbing and the new modern, either copper or, plastic, which includes CPVC and PEX. It's a plastic plumbing supply material. So this is for your supply plumbing, not your waste plumbing. It's the, that serves the water to your faucets. Actually, there was more problems with the connections than the actual pipe itself. There were issues, with the pipes failing, but it was more concerned with the connections. With modern CPVC or PEX plumbing, well, not PEX, but CPVC, they would glue the connections together. With polybutylene, it was like a ring type clamp that they would just kind of squeeze, and it would tighten the pipe to the connector. And those are the ones that had a history of really failing, and the pipe would just pop. They just pop off. And if it's a supply plumbing, it's constant pressure. So that water's coming out until you shut the main supply, valve off. And as we all know, things like that are going to happen when you're on vacation. You come back after, 2 or 3 days and the water's been running for that long. You can imagine the damage, that it can do.
I have that t-shirt. So my house was built in 1988, just to give you an example. And we've had to replumb our entire house because it started in my closet coming out of the shower, but it was in the slab. So we had to drill down into the slab, get that fixed. And then we found another breakage. It was just a mess. So it was easier to replumb it. And that's what they said. It was the polybutylene plumbing. And so it's really the couplings that they put around it, that not so much the pipes.
Right. Yes.
Okay. All right. And I would imagine like age of roof and condition of HVAC in a home that was built between the 60s and 80s. You don't have anything that's original, right? Right. So these are replacements.
Right.
Okay. Yep. And
no, absolutely.
What are concerns that you've actually seen on the roof and the HVAC?
Well, again, it's just, it's the age and the condition of the materials. In Florida, most roofs last around 20 years, give or take. I know a lot of manufacturers claim that they have a 30-year warranty, 40-year warranty, so forth. Maybe in some parts of the country, but not Florida. Just the sun, it's not even the rain or the wind or anything. It's just the sun. It just really does a number on the materials. And after about 20 years, it's about time to replace it. So it's just, checking the condition, how much life is left on the roofing materials. Same with the HVAC system, the age, the performance, if it's working correctly or not.
Okay.
About 12 to 15 years is about the average lifespan of an AC system in Florida. So if it's in or around that age or even past it, it's not uncommon for insurance companies to have a problem, insuring that age of system. Same with the water heater. It's only about 8 to 12 according to industry standards. So about 10 years, give or take. So if your, water heater is 15, 20 years old, it's not a matter of if it's going to fail. It's just, it's when, and it's probably going to be sooner or later, in that scenario. And actually probably in the 60s, they still were using some cast iron waste plumbing as well. So that's, if it's built in the 60s, that's another concern that you need to be aware of. And a lot of these, obviously age homes have had a lot of renovations, a lot of repairs, a lot of upgrades. That doesn't mean they were all done correctly, unfortunately. So when we go in to do the inspection, we check to make sure that those additions, upgrades, repairs were all done correctly and according to current standards. So if it's just somebody wire nutted some wiring together up in the attic and not put it in a junction box with a cover, that's a fire hazard.
Gotcha.
So that has to be reported.
Gotcha. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
I totally agree with that. So remember, we are talking about homes and common finds that we find according to when they were originally built, because codes and standards have changed, right?
Yes.
So they're not the same. There's materials that were being used during those building years that are no longer acceptable, or that they're breaking down. Like cast iron is expected to last 75 to 100 years, right? Am I right?
Which one?
Cast iron?
Oh, 50 to 75, actually.
I'm sorry, 50 to 75 years. So
right.
Morgan & Morgan has class action suits out there, right? Because, they're talking about the breakdown. And so if your house was built 75 years ago and you're finding that you have sewer line issues, it's probably because you have cast iron, and that cast iron is now disintegrating underneath the ground. And that's really what happens. It rusts from the inside out. You get roots coming down through. They're looking for water. They're breaking open the actual piping itself. So, there's a lot of things that could go on underground, which an inspector cannot see, right? So when we say get a sewer scope, we highly recommend that you get a sewer scope, right? That's really important that you follow the directions that our inspection team are giving you.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So when we go from 1980 to 2000, what are those items that we might be looking at in that age range of a house?
Well, thankfully, most of the electrical and plumbing issues have been brought up to current standards by that time. Very, very, matter of fact, I think it'd be probably impossible to find galvanized supply plumbing or cast iron waste plumbing. There's no more knob and tube. There's no more cloth wiring. It's all, modern materials. But, you're talking, the 80s are now 40 years ago. Hard to believe. That's when I was in high school in the 80s. So you just have to, at this age group of homes, you're just looking for, to make sure that if it has not been any upgrades in the electrical system or the plumbing. I think most likely the roof and the water heater and the HVAC would probably have been replaced at some point by that, that time, even up into 2000. That's over 20 years ago now. So that's way past the life expectancy for all of those components, your roof, your water heater, and your HVAC. So you're just making sure that the systems are operating correctly, that there's no hazards, and what type of, repairs, if any, that have been done, making sure that those have been done correctly and up to current standards.
Okay. And the obsolete panel, the Challenger panels, they actually played a part in the 80s to 2000. They were the electrical panels that were being used. So not all Challenger panels are on that obsolete list, but some of them are. Okay.
Yes.
All right. And then what about from kind of like, so as you can see, as they went through, once we got to 1980 and 2000, between 1980 and 2000, like Shane said, a lot of those cast iron galvanized electrical panels that are now on recalls, those all kind of, weren't being used in home construction. So those aren't an issue anymore, but now you've got deterioration of the products that were being used that could be considered a problem in those ages of houses. So now we come into, the last 20 years. What are there common issues like that that you find that homes that were built after 2000?
I think in this age range of homes, it's basically you just have a lot of DIY people that have done a lot of renovations, additions, things of that nature themselves without being aware of codes and proper installation procedures. So we just find a lot of things that were installed incorrectly
Okay.
and not up to current standards. I mean, we're not code enforcement. When someone's building a home, they have a code inspector that comes in, and if that code has not been followed in a particular system or area, they can shut down the construction process until that's fixed. We don't have that authority, but we do know the codes, so we can point out, hey, Mrs. Jones, this addition that they built, the electrical system is not up to current code. So we just say, hey, that's for your information. You can do with that what you will. We're not going to tell you not to buy the house because of it, but it's a safety hazard. It's going to be on the insurance report. They're most likely going to want to seek some correction before you proceed. But that's your call. We're just here to report what we find. So in that age range, if it's built around 2000, obviously the HVAC, if it has not been replaced, the water heater has not been replaced, the roof has not been replaced, they're all at or near the end of their life expectancy. So again, it's just a matter of the insurance company whether they're going to find fault with that or not. And then as you get older into homes that are just within the last 5 to 10 years, most of those are probably still original, and it's just a matter of if they're operating properly. No roof leaks, HVAC is cooling and heating, the water heater is heating, it's not leaking, it's not rusted, things of that nature.
So just to kind of recap, so a roof, so now we're kind of in modern day, right? You froze. Are you okay? A roof in the state of Florida typically lasts about 15 to 20 years. Is that right?
Depending on the material, yeah.
Okay.
Some are about 15 to 20, some are 20 to 25. So you can tell, usually use about 20 years as, an average
Okay.
age.
So we're really talking shingle roof. We're not talking tile. Tiles
Correct.
have a much longer, or metal. They have a much
metal,
longer
right.
life expectancy. But
Right.
just to give you an idea, most of the roofs in this state are actually shingle roofs. So just to kind of give you an idea, HVAC you already went over. They typically last between 8 and 12 years. Correct?
12 to 15.
12 to 15.
Yeah, it depends, and all that depends on the maintenance too. If you change your filter every month and get it serviced once a year, it's probably going to be more towards the 15.
Yeah.
If you don't maintain it properly, you might get 6 or 7. It just really, depends. But yeah, usually 12 to 15 is what we tell customers.
Okay.
And then 8 to 12 on the water heater.
I was just going to say, I had those flipped. So
yeah, that's
sorry.
okay. No problem.
That's why I don't do inspections and I just handle the marketing, right?
That's quite all right.
Anyway, I just wanted to thank you, Shane, and we're looking forward to having you back on our schedule again. Hopefully we've got fingers crossed that he gets a release and that he'll be back soon to service our clients, because he has many fans out there, and we know that you've been missed. So thank you.
Absolutely. Glad to be here. Glad to help.
It's nice to be able to utilize you though a little bit. I got to tell you that. So thank you very much for joining us today. And if you happen to need a home inspection or an expert opinion on the home that you're looking at, please call our office at 813-409-3249. Again, it's 813-409-3249. Thanks, guys. Have a blessed day out there. Have a Good day. Bye.